They thought the handcuffs would silence her. They didn't know who was sitting 3 rows behind, watching. They didn't just want her out. They wanted her forgotten. But they forgot one thing. Pam never misses a pattern. The courtroom was full, but no one dared breathe. The air inside room 104 of the Arlington Oversight Committee felt like it hadn't been touched in hours. Stale, thick, and watchful. Every creak of a chair echoed like thunder. Every glance was measured. No cameras, no headlines yet, but everyone knew a story was being written. At the center of the room stood Caroline Leavitt, a name many had tried to sideline quietly. Young, self-possessed, and standing before a committee designed to bury rather than listen. Her palms were flat against the podium. Her voice had not yet been raised. Her eyes, however, were louder than anything spoken that morning. Across from her sat Senator Gregory Blaine, once a statesman, now a judge with emergency authority under the Public Data Integrity Act, a role created for oversight, a role he wielded like a sword. He leaned forward, chin resting on one knuckle. "Miss Leavitt," he said, slow and precise, "you've been warned once. If you interrupt again, I'll be forced to initiate contempt proceedings." The words weren't loud, but they landed like a slap across the room. Caroline didn't flinch. She didn't glance at her counsel. She didn't break eye contact. "I'm answering the questions, Your Honor," she said softly. "If the truth feels like interruption, that's a different conversation." A soft breath escaped from somewhere in the gallery. A single exhale of disbelief, maybe admiration. Blaine's mouth twitched, but not into a smile. He tapped his gavel once. "We will proceed." But everyone knew they had already crossed a line. When justice becomes theater, every movement matters. And Caroline wasn't just playing her part. She was rewriting the script. 2 days earlier, Caroline stood in her kitchen in Concord, New Hampshire, reading a subpoena with one eyebrow raised and the other eye on the coffee brewing. The timing was deliberate, the contents were vague, and the sender's signature was unmistakable. Senator Gregory Blaine. She'd known something was coming. Just not this fast, not this coordinated. By the time her attorney called, she was already drafting bullet points. The hearing would be held under the pretext of economic data misrepresentation, a technical phrase for political hit job. Caroline had presented a projection on national job losses that didn't match the Department of Labor's sanitized figures. The number she used came from a regional forecast, public, peer-reviewed, but inconvenient. By noon, she'd made a single phone call. One name, Pam Bondi. No introductions were needed. Pam had read the subpoena an hour before Caroline received it. "I've seen this trick before," Pam said over the phone, her voice calm and clear. "They want to corner you fast enough that you can't respond. So we don't respond. We prepare." Caroline smiled faintly. "You really think it'll get that bad?" "No," Pam replied. "I think it'll get worse. That's why I'm coming." She arrived in D.C. without a press trail. No luggage, just a leather briefcase and a folder thicker than the subpoena. When the truth threatens comfort, power doesn't correct. It punishes. Back in the courtroom, the second day of testimony began without ceremony. The room was colder than before, not in temperature, but in tone. Caroline took the stand again, this time under sharper scrutiny. Her attorney had reviewed the line of questioning. Nothing unusual, nothing explicit, but something unspoken hung in the air like smoke before a fire. Judge Blaine didn't greet her. He simply nodded, the nod of someone who had already decided the outcome. Caroline began her statement, calmly outlining the source of her projections, the context, the release dates, every point supported by published data. Then came the interruption. "That's not responsive," Blaine snapped. "I'm answering the committee's question," Caroline said, her voice unwavering. "You're grandstanding. he said again, tapping his gavel. "I warned you once!" "You warned me for stating facts," she replied. The room stilled. Blaine leaned back. The gavel came down hard. "Bailiff, place Miss Leavitt into temporary custody. She is now in contempt of court." The words felt surreal. A moment too harsh for even the staff to process. Caroline turned, not in shock, but with clarity. Her hands moved behind her back. She didn't fight. She didn't plead. She allowed the cuffs, careful, even respectful, to be placed around her wrists. Gasps rippled through the chamber, but not from Caroline, and not from Pam. Power makes mistakes when it assumes no one is watching, but Pam was always watching. Pam Bondi didn't rise with urgency. She didn't raise her voice or brandish emotion. She simply stood, folded her file closed, and stepped forward with deliberate calm. "Your Honor," she said, "my colleague and I have filed a federal injunction against any detention involving Miss Leavitt. The document is time-stamped and binding." Judge Blaine scoffed. "No such document has been received." Pam didn't blink. She opened her briefcase, drew out a single sheet of paper, and walked it to the clerk. 10 seconds passed, then 20, and then the clerk whispered something quiet but sharp, into Blaine's ear. He froze, not completely, just enough for those watching closely to see it. "We will recess," he muttered. 10 minutes. Pam didn't return to her seat. She turned to Caroline, still standing, still cuffed. "You're not going anywhere," Pam whispered. That was his first mistake. And just like that, the power in the room shifted, not with noise, not with victory, but with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't retreat. The kind that waits, because it knows exactly what's coming next. Justice doesn't only happen in the courtroom. It begins 2 floors above it. While the courtroom murmured under the weight of shock, just 2 floors above, silence reigned with purpose. The office of the federal ethics officer was plain. No nameplate on the door, no sound beyond the hum of the lights overhead. Pam Bondi entered alone. No entourage, no dramatic entrance, just a sealed envelope marked Judicial Conduct Inquiry, Confidential. The clerk behind the glass recognized her immediately. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. "Filed under federal stay," Pam said softly. The envelope contained 5 pages, not one word wasted. Timelines, contradictions, oversteps. "Filed and sealed," the clerk confirmed. Pam nodded once and left the office with the same calm she entered. Downstairs, the cuffs came off. The bailiff handled them like he was returning a borrowed pen. Caroline didn't rub her wrists. She didn't smile. Pam stepped beside her. "You're not here to win," she said quietly. "You're here to outlast." Across the room, eyes watched them both, some with curiosity, some with calculation, but no one, not a soul, saw the fire already burning 2 floors above. When one door closes, injustice finds a window. Judge Blaine returned to the bench 10 minutes later, composed but changed. The confidence in his voice had shifted, no longer commanding, only controlled. "We will resume," he said. "The state may proceed with witness testimony." They didn't dare touch contempt again. Instead, the prosecution pivoted. New direction, same agenda. "The state calls Trevor Ellis," said the prosecutor, a labor data analyst, crisp suit, nervous hands. "Mr. Ellis, have you reviewed Miss Leavitt's economic projections from her February interview?" "Yes," he replied. "Her numbers were inflated by roughly 34% over federal benchmarks." Gasps, carefully stifled. Pam leaned slightly forward, pen already moving. Caroline showed nothing. On cross-examination, Caroline's attorney asked, "Did you examine the sources for her projections?" "I did not," Ellis admitted. "So you're not claiming they were false? Just different?" "Correct." The room shifted again, quietly. Pam slid a note across the table. "They're numbers. They're rules, but no proof of intent. They couldn't prove intent, so they planted suspicion. The next witness wasn't a government official. It was Lauren Cates, junior assistant producer at the network that aired Caroline's segment. She looked young, anxious, her fingers twisting a bracelet as she swore in. "Were you present during the interview?" "Yes." "Did you coordinate with any advocacy group or political campaign prior to it?" "No, just internal staff." But then came the twist. "Did you ever see documents or emails with political initials or names?" Lauren hesitated. "I saw one email with initials, maybe from someone advising her." The gallery stirred. Blaine raised his eyebrows but didn't speak. Pam scribbled fast. "They're baiting campaign coordination, thin ice." Cross-examination sliced the implication to ribbons. "Did the presence of initials confirm coordination?" "No." "Was the interview edited differently than others?" "No." Pam didn't lean back. She leaned in. "They're losing ground," she whispered. "But don't get comfortable." Injustice rarely shows its face, but behind the door it leaves fingerprints. Recess again, this time not announced with force, but exhaustion. Judge Blaine left through the rear exit, his steps stiff. He hadn't looked at Caroline once in the last hour. Pam didn't wait. She rose and slipped through a side hallway. No one followed. No one even noticed. Up 2 flights of stairs, she entered the Office of Judicial Oversight. The same clerk, the same sealed tray, a second envelope. "Addendum," she said. This one contained detailed breakdowns of courtroom procedure breaches, witness manipulation, and Blaine's verbal inconsistencies. "Filed under seal." The clerk didn't ask for clarification. He stamped the folder and filed it without a word. Back in courtroom 104, Caroline sat alone at the defense table. She didn't check her phone. She didn't look at the gallery. She was still, watchful, because she knew Pam had left the courtroom. And that meant something bigger had just begun. When the game ends, the real power move isn't the win. It's making sure the rules can't be broken again. The courtroom lights seemed dimmer when they returned from recess, as if even the electricity had grown weary of the performance. Judge Blaine resumed his position, his robe immaculate, but the man beneath it less so. His voice was steady, but distant. He no longer leaned forward. He didn't need to. Everyone had heard him already. Too much, in fact. "We will now proceed to closing arguments," he said. "Counselors, you may begin." The prosecution moved first. The assistant attorney, careful not to sound like the aggressor, lowered his tone. "This is not about partisanship," he began, hands open like a man offering peace. "It's about accountability. When public figures misstate information, even unintentionally, consequences ripple. Today we ask only for acknowledgement of that impact." His voice didn't rise. His logic was sound. But it lacked conviction, and more importantly, it lacked facts. Pam Bondi stood. She did not pace. She did not gesture. She spoke like someone addressing a jury of one. "This hearing," she said, "was never about what was said. It was about how to punish who said it." A pause. "Miss Leavitt's projections were sourced from regional economic forecasts, all publicly available. There is no evidence, none, that those numbers were falsified, manipulated, or coordinated. The prosecution's case is not about error. It is about silencing dissent." She stepped back. Her words landed without echo. They didn't need one. Caroline's lead counsel followed with a brief, precise breakdown of methodology, citations from 2 precedents, and a final line. "Accuracy is a debate. Censorship is a decision." The courtroom didn't move. Not yet. Judge Blaine cleared his throat, eyes never leaving the folder in front of him. They expected fury. What they got was stillness. And that's what scared them most. Blaine returned from chambers at 2:59 p.m. He didn't look at the gallery. He didn't look at Caroline. He read from a single sheet of paper. The court finds that while Miss Leavitt's statements differ from federal data, there is no evidence of deliberate falsification or coordination with external groups. Therefore, no formal sanctions will be imposed. The breath that left the room wasn't relief. It was release. But Blaine continued. However, he said, the court notes with concern the tone and approach during testimony. Pam stood before he could finish. That language, she said firmly, is covered by the federal stay. It was reviewed and dismissed. Blaine didn't argue. He didn't even lift his eyes. This is a closing note, he replied, not a judgment. Then he left the bench. No applause, no flashbulbs, just silence. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Pam didn't walk out the front. She walked up the back staircase to file a final envelope. Addendum to Complaint 44 JC 117 inside. Blaine's closing comment, transcribed and time-stamped. Pam didn't wait for acknowledgement. She never did. Downstairs, Caroline paused by the exit. Her aide asked, "Should we comment on the outcome?" She shook her head. "No, let the record speak." 3 days later, a press release went out. The matter concerning Miss Caroline Leavitt has been resolved. No further action will be taken. We thank all parties for their cooperation. No mention of the judge. No mention of the stay. 1 week later, Judge Gregory Blaine submitted a formal letter to the Judicial Review Board. Effective immediately, I will retire from my current position. I remain grateful for the opportunity to serve. No farewell, no conference, just ink on paper. In a quiet office in D.C., Pam received a single-line email from the Ethics Board. Complaint 44 JC 117 closed. No response required. She didn't forward it. She didn't save it. She just closed her laptop and reached for the next folder. And somewhere in a quiet courthouse far from headlines, silence continued to do its work. If this story moved you, made you pause, or reminded you that power isn't always loud, like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Caroline's place? Did justice win? Or did silence simply outlast it?